FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
This episode of the Financial Survival Network is brought to you in part by Sandstorm Gold Royalties. Sandstorm Gold Royalties is a different kind of gold company. They purchase royalties on select mining operations and receive a percentage of the revenue in return. Sandstorm now has a portfolio of over 185 gold royalties around the world. See how gold royalties differ from other gold mining investments at sandstormgold.com. That's sandstormgold.com. Sandstorm Gold Royalties trades on the TSX as SSL and on the New York Stock Exchange American as SAND.
Welcome, and you are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's 10/10/18. Hey, don't forget, be a part of the show. Email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. Person you're about to hear from, interesting person, Jersey boy like myself originally. Hey, he's been raided twice by the FBI, had guns held to his own head, to his children's head. Can you imagine? You're just sitting in your house, minding your own business, knock on the door, or they don't even bother knocking, and they just break the door down. Does that sound like a little bit like a police state? You've probably read him. His site is TruePundit.com. He was going by the pseudonym of Thomas Paine, like one of the great pamphleteers of the Revolutionary War, and finally came out. His name is Michael Moore, and not that Michael Moore, but the Michael Moore, in my opinion. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kerry. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, so you were running an operation like Fusion GPS before there was a Fusion GPS. You've got have had a bird's eye view as a journalist, and I don't want to call it operative, but private intelligence, if you will, of the system, of what's going on in the country here. You know, many of you out there, you read things, you just shake your head and you just don't know what to believe and wonder if things can really be as bad as they appear. And, you know, Michael, from all appearances, the answer is yes, isn't it? Or worse.
It's worse than people could imagine. It really is. And I think that in recent months, even for an individual like me who has seen a lot of different things, I'm starting to shake my head and say, wow, this has really gotten crazy. And I think it's been that way for a long time. And there's more of a realization, more of an awareness now where people are starting to wake up and notice some of these things that are completely out of control with the government.
Hey, so I kind of trace it back to the assassination of JFK. I think the country was never the same after that because, I mean, there's been assassinations before, let's face it, but nothing this systematically covered up. I think it was a watershed event and a major blow struck to the rule of law in the United States. Not that it wasn't happening before. I mean, Patton's death was very suspicious. This group of elites, you know, had been running things directly or indirectly for a while, but it reached a whole new level with JFK's assassination from my perspective.
Well, I think I talked to somebody else. It's funny. I talked to somebody else this morning about this. They brought up JFK and the speech he gave about shadow government, which would be a comparable term to today's deep state, and how everything fell apart for him after that speech. And it's impossible not to draw parallels between today and that time in history in the 60s when he made a speech like that. And he said, let's break the CIA into a million pieces and scatter it into the wind or something. I'm paraphrasing, but it's impossible not to draw parallels because you had a figure like JFK who was larger than life. And today, whether you like him or dislike him, Trump is a similar figure. The fact that he's so well loved and so well hated makes him larger than life, whether you like him or not. So the parallels are uncanny. And I think a lot of what happens when you get somebody who's not conventional in a major leadership position like that in the White House, these shadow factions, shadow companies, shadow people they get very nervous and they start to, in many cases, telegraph their, they're worried. They're worried with a guy like this. It's unpredictable. They could start tweeting. He could start tweeting about them at 3 a.m. and their entire, it's like
you're right.
They wake up. They wake up to a call at 4 a.m. The president is tweeting about you, and it has them off of their axis. And I think it's a good thing. I think the very fact that is going on gives guys like me an opening to come out and tell my story and some of the things we know about the deep state working for them. And the good thing is, too, we have so many connections through the years, talking 30 years, we can just pick up the phone and call people that know things. It's not like you have to go looking for sources. You know exactly who worked for who and who was working what. And there's an advantage now because we're all getting a little older. Like I'm 51.
Right.
Where people want to talk about things they did in their 20s and 30s because they look back and they said, we probably shouldn't have done a lot of these things.
Yeah, there's conscience. Some of them have a conscience, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure when these stories come out, we're not going to believe it. And I think my theory about Trump is he's been planning this for 20, 30 years, just like I made the analogy prior to World War II. George Patton knew that we were going to have another world war with Germany. So he went over to Europe and he explored potential future battlefields. He made his plans up then so that once the war started and he was actually there in the thick of battle, he was ready. He knew every square inch of these battlefields, whereas all the other generals were scrambling. And I think Trump has planned this for quite some time, like perfect example, bitter enemy, Lindsey Graham, the worst of enemies, because he was definitely part of the deep state under McCain. I don't think there's any question about it. And all of a sudden, he's been liberated, Lindsey Graham. Maybe he's going to be the attorney general. We don't know that yet. I think we need to sit back, wait and see. But the point is that Trump has been planning this takedown for decades, and these people, all they can do is react. And like you said, when the deep state gets nervous, I think a lot of people stop breathing. It's like, if you remember in the movie Casino, when they finally get that mob boss and they find his diary of all the payments. And then all of a sudden, all these guys who were like best friends start disappearing like into thin air. And we might just be approaching that type of scenario now.
When you back these guys into a corner, they're going to react. When you see 3 or 4 CIA directors lashing out on Twitter against Trump, you have to sit back and say, well, what are these guys so worried about? Like, John Brennan is not that popular of a guy. No. They're not going to come out and just say, oh, I'm going to come out and support John Brennan because he was CIA director and I was CIA director 10 years ago, like in the case of Hayden. There's a reason. John Brennan's secrets are Hayden's secrets. These secrets, they move from the Bush administration to the Obama administration, and for all intents and purposes, they wanted those secrets to move to the Hillary Clinton administration. And when Trump gets in, it's like, wait a minute, we have a serious problem now.
Yeah, and he released all those JFK files, like. Look, the CIA, you think of them as agents dedicated to the country, et cetera. When you need to get somebody to pay you money in a foreign country, you go to the American embassy and you say, how do I get these guys to pay me? And they invariably give you over to a CIA officer who is a freelancer, and he will help you collect the money for a fee. All right, plus a bonus if he's successful. And I said, what the heck? When I heard this, and I heard it from somebody close to the president, I got to tell you, I was in complete and utter shock. But they gave me about 10 or 15 different examples of this, and I said, that's not what these guys are supposed to be doing. That's not why we're spending $100 billion a year on this agency. What the heck is going on? Something is really wrong with our government, isn't it?
These guys throw money around like it's like you and I. We have to earn our money, but if you're in the good graces of these folks and you're helping them with some kind of a sideways operation, they throw crazy money around. I mean, look at Omar Mateen, the rat who shot up the Pulse nightclub in Florida. He was paid over $100,000 as an FBI informant. I mean, you know, these rogue individuals and people who keep circling around and causing problems and even causing death all seem to be on the federal payroll. And it's just widespread corruption that you can't even imagine. And it's worse than that. And it's worse than that because it goes all the way to the top. These administrations, not the current one.
Yeah.
That's the issue for these.
That's the problem.
Have committed their sins, you know?
You know, every one of these terrorists that hits, it seems, has got a history with the FBI. The guy who shot up Fort Lauderdale Airport, they gave him back his gun. They said, oh, he's behaving weird. Oh, you're okay. Here's your gun back. And then he goes and shoots up the airport. The guy at the Pulse nightclub, they knew about him. His father had turned him in for crying out loud. And example after example where they fail to stop these people. You did extensive reporting about what actually happened in Las Vegas, which was shocking because, gee, we don't know his motivation of the person who supposedly did it. We have no idea why he did it. And, you know, they know exactly what the deal was there.
Yeah, it's one thing after another. Like the father of Omar Mateen in Orlando, the Pulse nightclub shooter, he was an FBI asset. An FBI asset. He was on the payroll, the father.
Yeah.
And he went to the FBI and said, hey, my son's kind of out of control. I mean, maybe you should take a look at him. Then they visited him 3 times, the FBI, and said, hey, what are you doing? You know, what's going on? Why are you moving with these people? Why are you at this particular mosque? And then the guy goes berserk. 50 people are dead. And they're standing around like, oh, well, you know, we checked him out. We vetted him. And then they take that same model and they apply it to Las Vegas, and they expect people to sit back and say, oh, okay, there's no motive, and we don't know why this guy went off.
Hey,
people are smarter than that.
The guy who rode down the bike path in New York and killed 8 people, they knew about him. They know about all these people to the point where, honestly, Michael, when I hear of an event like this, instantly what pops into my mind is not like, how did this happen? It's like, oh, there's another one the FBI let go, right? I mean,
it's funny because you're right, but it's sad. When we started True Pundit 2 years ago, this was our goal. When I say dismantle the FBI, I'm talking about taking the FBI off our mantle place as the great law enforcement body that they are hyped up to be, and taking it off your mantle and saying, these guys, there's something wrong with it. We have to take these people down a couple pegs until we fix this bureau because it's so rife with corruption.
Oh my God!
The stuff you're seeing in the media, Kerry, is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more coming out.
Oh, I know. And hey, you've been done yeoman's work at exposing them. No wonder they've raided your house twice. So what do they do after they raid you? What do they grab? Your computers and what kind of stuff? And then what happens?
They take everything. They take everything. They take your computers. They took. You ready for this? They took all of our family photos from all my, kids would go to Disneyland and go on trips and kids' first birthdays. They took all the photo albums and they wouldn't give them back. They never gave them back. They said, no, you're not getting them back. It's evidence.
That's just malicious. It's just
harassment. It's just complete harassment. Then I had a collection of hockey tapes, and we were trading hockey tapes online, and we had highlight sites where people were putting up like hockey fights and good hockey plays. And then I got charged with copyright infringement.
Oh my God! And you're not selling this stuff, so what's?
No, I mean we were selling old games that weren't copywritten, like 30s,
public domain,
40s, 50s, 60s.
Yeah, they're in the public domain. If it's over 50-something years or something, that's then they charge you. They put you through the whole process. They harass you. Then you have to. What we did, we fought it for a long time, and then finally, what had gone on for so long, just bled out to one count. And when I was going through that, when I was on probation, I said, you know what, we come off of this whole thing. I'm going to go back into journalism, and we're going to square this up, and we're going
we're going to find out what these guys are doing. Because if they did this to me, they must be doing it to other people. And then we come to find out they do it to a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. You get on their bad side. You know, the mob in the 60s used to call the FBI the fumbling bunch of idiots. FBI, that's what it stood for. And I always thought that's, you know, they hate them, so it's totally understandable. But what I've been seeing, and then the whole thing with them trying to pull this soft coup, both before and after the election, all right, I will accept the fact that presidential campaigns are always bugged. Okay? It's not right, shouldn't be. But I'm willing to accept that that's the way the game is played, and when you sign up for it, you know it. Because Nixon was bugged, Kennedy was bugged, you know, everybody is bugged here. We know this. But after you're elected president, it's supposed to stop, and it didn't here. That, to me, is the shocking part.
Not only that, it could still be going on for all we know.
Well, you just published that thing today where, what's his name, Rand Paul,
yeah,
asked Christopher Wray flat out, is the NSA or the FBI taping the, you know, recording, surveilling the president now? And he wouldn't answer. So sometimes...
shouldn't that just be yes or no answer?
Well, you know what? Sometimes when you don't answer, that is the answer. Right?
That is the answer, correct. Yeah.
Because if it was no, say, are you crazy? We'd never do a thing like that. But, I'll plead the fifth, you know, it means a lot. So we're knee deep in this corruption. I think there's always been an amount of corruption, tolerable amount, that the country was able to accept and grow and move forward. But I think we're at the point where the parasites are like killing off the host. I think we've reached that point.
You're right. That's a good way of putting it, because it's and we have this book coming out. We'll talk about that. But it has just really, whatever you see in the media now, Gary, I times it by 20. What's in this book, and I'm not trying to like hype it up, because we just want to get the story out. This is about making money. I don't think we're going to make any money on this book, and that's not why we did it. It's just about getting the story out. And it's such an incredible story of these institutional people who think that they know what's best for the country, and they go against the Constitution at every turn, and they sold us all out.
Yeah.
They sold us all out. This is one lie after another, and
hey.
You know, we've been blessed with the expertise to expose it, so I'm happy about that. But as an American, I'm not happy about the content.
Definitely not. And when you look at the mainstream media, they're complicit. They couldn't have done it without them. And we know from, you know, hearings, 50s, 60s, Operation Mockingbird, that the media is controlled by the deep state. The Washington Post is a CIA organ. We know all this. You know, there's not even a question about it. And the Times is more like, I forget which branch controls them, but they're controlled by like competing factions in the government, all of these different media outlets.
Even when I was working in North Jersey in the New York market, these guys would come marching in. If you had a good story, and, you know, we'd say, the editors always say, you know, make sure you call the FBI for comment, or call the Department of Defense. And an hour later, they're down in your lobby. They would, you know, it's like, wait a minute. You know, hey, Mike, there's two guys from the FBI here. Hey, there's two guys from the State Department here. What do you know, the receptionist, we had 1,000 people in the building. Yeah. Well, send them upstairs. I guess I have to meet with these people, you know, unannounced. And then they come in and they say, you can't print that story because it's going to national security issue. And the editors are like, oh, okay, maybe we shouldn't print the story. And I'm like, print the freaking story.
You're screaming.
What they say.
You're screaming your head off and nobody's listening to you.
And then they get together with the editors and they cut a deal. Okay, we won't print this story, but in the future you'll give us consideration for a scoop or something like that. And the reporters are beating the streets saying, this is ridiculous.
What am I doing?
It's a great story.
Hey, and what about the FBI agents, the ones who really want to do a good job, who really care about the country, and their investigations are getting spiked all the time, and they're sent on wild goose chases? Like, the FBI, when it was created, they gave them jurisdiction over bank robberies because those are great PR pieces, but there's no reason that the FBI should be investigating bank robberies. And they also put them in charge of auto theft because they were good statistics. The FBI is really founded upon a lie.
It's, it's such a mess. I don't know if it's fixable. I was especially, you talk about Ray. We talked about Ray earlier when I was speaking to you before the show started, and I don't know. He doesn't seem like he's got it. He doesn't seem like he has what it takes to turn things around. And until he admits that there's a major problem, it's like a doctor. Until a doctor comes in and says, "Hey, you have major problems. We have to address these." Yeah. And then you find a cure. Until he does something like that, well, he's not helping the agency, or he's not protecting the agency by pretending there's no problem. He's like he's almost like the crazy relative who won't get treatment because they think they can beat it by some
holistic method.
Holistic method. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when you keep going down the tubes health-wise, it might be time to say that maybe the methods, the meditation and things aren't working. So
you could do both.
Take it face on.
Well, he has fired a bunch of those guys, though. Like, you have to look at the hierarchy of the FBI, and they've been replaced. But then the FBI's general counsel, they bring him back. What was his name? Dana something. They bring this guy back who was knee-deep in all the corruption. And that's his...
You're talking about Valente?
Yeah, what was his name? I got it wrong, but...
Yeah, Dana Valente.
Dana Valente, that's the guy. Why do you bring this guy back? You were rid of him, It's madness.
This guy signed one of the FISA warrants, one of the crooked FISA warrants.
Well, maybe they want him close where they can keep an eye on him. I don't know.
You're right, though. Why would you bring him in? He's probably would be a suspect. Not a fact witness, he would be a suspect because he signed one of the warrants, and now he's running your department. Okay, that
makes sense.
Choice.
Hey, well,
total masterstroke.
Could you imagine if Ray turns out to be this really, efficient, super bright, FBI director who's been hiding behind the scenes all this time, setting these people up, and all of a sudden he's going to strike? I mean, hey, you couldn't make that stuff up. I don't believe it. I'm starting to really have doubts about the guy when he says, we just need some sensitivity training and a little more diversity training, and everything will be fine at the FBI to be more mindful of the public's rights. Yeah, okay. I think it's a little deeper than that. But the fact that they would conspire to get rid of a president, is pretty outrageous. But we know they've done it before. We know they've done it before. Kennedy, classic example, but even before him, everybody who kills a politician in this country is a lone crazed gunman, right? Except for John Wilkes Booth. They actually found a conspiracy there, but that was the last conspiracy to take out a president, according to the powers that be,
Well, this coup is massive. I think it goes back to years, because what we did in the book is we went all the way back to the Clinton administration and said, well, what was the FBI doing back at this time? And then what did they do during the Bush administration? And then who were they working with? They were working with the CIA on certain things internationally and keeping secrets in the States. So then a guy like Trump comes in and they're like, wait a minute, this whole 20 years of deceit could unfold and expose a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're worried about. So they want to get this guy out. As soon as he became a threat during the campaign, you could see it was like a light switch. They're like, all right, well, we have to make sure this guy doesn't get elected. Mm-hmm. And then when he got elected, it's like a knob on the wall. They turned it up to 11. They said, well, now we really got to get this guy out. We have to drum up all the stuff to get him out. And it's a problem. It's a serious problem. And I hope he understands that these guys do have a lot of power, and they will cause chaos. I mean, I think a lot of the same forces are at work with the Kavanaugh hearing. They just turned it into a complete circus. These are dangerous people.
Well, the one thing you have to say, when Trump went into the White House, first thing he did was put the military, General Kelly, in charge of security at the White House and his own personal security. So I think he was on to them from the get-go, and I think he knew all this stuff. You said you hadn't had much chance to take a look at QAnon. There's enough truth in there, enough true stuff that makes me more confident that it's true than not true, and that he was approached purportedly by inner circle of the military, Trump, to run for office, to purge this whole thing out, because they just saw it. The country was going to go up in smoke. And I think there's a good possibility that that is true, because he's surrounded himself with former generals and admirals, and even them, you have to watch out, because what's more part of the deep state than the military, than the Pentagon? All the money they waste, everything that gets thrown out there, and all the dumb wars and confrontations we've gotten into over the years, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So
I think QAnon, people ask me about QAnon all the time, and I say we're pretty busy here trying to vet all the stuff that comes across our desks and our radar screens. And they say, what do you think about QAnon? And I say, look, if it's getting people engaged and involved in this political process, I'm all for it. Mm-hmm. But what I worry about is somebody trying to predict accurately what happens in Washington, because it's such a crazy place. It's almost impossible to predict what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I try to stay away from the predictions, because we, like, as journalists, there's a stark difference. People that follow Q, they're not journalists. They're people. They're citizens. And but as a journalist, we follow the stuff that comes across our radar and try to turn it into stories. So when people ask me, my opinion doesn't matter about Q, because it's apples and oranges. What I do and what we do is completely different. Yeah. And I think that if people are engaged, I'm all for that. If that's what it takes to get them to the polls and vote and keep some of these other people out of office, what can be wrong with
Yeah. Hey, well, obviously you've been surveilled in the past. You're probably being surveilled now. I mean, my own personal thing is I deal usually with Austrian economics, and there's nobody bright enough in the intelligence service to know what that is. So I felt like I've been pretty free from it. And I don't really deal in politics. I deal in government issues, but not so much politics. Too dirty a business for me, and everybody lies, and I hate political parties. I think the political parties are just crime families, and their turf is the country and your wealth, and they're out to take every bit of it they can. I mean, hey, what did you think of that video? I hope you saw it, of Nancy Pelosi talking about the wrap-up smear.
I think she snapped.
Yeah, like
what is that?
And she was proud of it.
Inside baseball.
And she was like giddy. Laughing. Yeah. Like, what happened there? Yeah. Hey, this is what we do. First, she's talking about it as general. And then, it's she's personalized it. Like, she better be careful, or she could have a really bad accident. A plane crash.
You don't know what they're going to do, these people. I mean, it happens all the time, these strange accidents and murders that are never answered and never solved, and it always kind of hangs out there for decades. But she seems like that she doesn't always know where she's at recently.
Yeah, or who the president is. Like, I had a friend who was at a wedding over the weekend, and she had a little too much to drink. She passed out, fell on the floor. I caught her as she was falling, and one of the guys was an EMT. And the first thing they ask you is, do you know who the president is? Do you know who you are? And Nancy seems to think that Bush is still the president. She's called Trump Bush on numerous occasions. And hey, look, the rumor is that LBJ got too unreliable and he knew too much. So he kind of left the scene a little unexpectedly as well. He was supposedly insane pretty much. LBJ get on Air Force One and rip off all his clothes. I mean, he was nuts, the guy. And I remember I had a teacher in college who said they needed to get a bill passed. and he went to the White House with $500,000 in cash. And he didn't say who it was, but he imitated LBJ's drawl. And LBJ said, I want $500,000 and I want a 6-foot-tall blonde tonight. So he said the money was no problem. He had it. Finding a 6-foot-tall blonde in D.C. in the 60s on no notice was very difficult, but he managed to. Totally believable,
Hopefully
isn't it?
Hopefully it wasn't J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah.
Anyway.
In a dress, right? Yeah, well, this is the kind of madness that we're really dealing with, though. You know, where you can kind of believe anything, and then they take advantage of us. I'm sure you've been fed disinformation many times where they're trying to throw you off the scent and throw the public off the scent. How do you know when you're getting disinfo?
Well, you have to consider the source. If it's a news source, you have to vet everything, and then Jerry, it's like if it's too good to believe, it usually is. It's like if somebody comes to you and they say, "Oh, I got all this information," and you're not going to believe this. Nobody hands you the real gems.
Yeah.
No one ever hands you these incredible gems. You have to go find them, and you have to extract them out of people. And the rule is you really have to get people to be almost an artist to get people to trust you and to talk about the really good things.
Yeah.
It's very rare that somebody shows up and hands you these things. You really have to work for them. And that's when you know that it's real, because they don't want to give it up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm sure they're always trying to manipulate because they work on information, these agencies. That's really the key, is altering, manipulating the flow of information to make people believe things that aren't true and to make them believe that things that are true aren't, right? I mean, that's what it's all about.
That's what they're using the mainstream media for now. It's not, these guys have gone over the waterfall there. They're basically printing anything these people say, and there's no accountability. I mean, the New York Times, they print crazy things. The buzz doesn't even last 3 hours now. It used to last 3 days, and now people are like, I don't think so.
But Trump has managed to totally co-opt them, right? To really use his Twitter feed to go above them and around them. And they don't like it one bit. I mean, he sets the news cycle now at 4:30 in the morning. You know, reporters right, if I'm being a little stereotyping a little too much, they've known to imbibe a bit. They like to get their stories done, run out to the bar, right? I mean, isn't that the stereotype of reporters? It's a big drinking fraternity. They probably have had to cut back on their drinking because they got to get up at 5 a.m. and start answering and writing about his tweets, right?
It's actually funny in a way, because they have to be on the ball now. And you can see sometimes if he tweets really early in the morning, there's a lag.
Yeah, hangover lag.
Maybe an hour and a half lag where the reporters are like, I'm not doing anything. And probably, half of these rummies are probably hungover down there in D.C. You know, that these guys aren't...
they're not the brightest bulbs.
Dealing with the brightest people in D.C. People think that they're convinced they're the smartest people in the world because they're covering the White House.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can make a definite argument during the Obama administration that they were the smartest sheep in the world. They didn't seem to write about anything that he did wrong.
No.
Because for 8 years, the guy could do no wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
So, it's ridiculous.
And then on the fact is there used to be no news on the weekend. Of course, there was news. It just never got written about. But now, in the weekends used to be sacrosanct for reporters. They could party and, nurse their hangovers, whatever. Now it's 7 days a week. There's no longer a break on the weekends with Trump. And I think he knows that. And he just likes to stick the knife in and twist it.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you look at the Senate last week on Saturday, they were in session. I was thinking they must really be... When they get out, I was saying, during the Kavanaugh vote when we were here covering. I said, when they get out tonight, you can guarantee you the liquor is going to be flowing down there.
The liquor and the women will be flowing for sure.
The liquor and everything will be flowing, especially with the reporters, because the reporters have to cover all this. And it's like, I applaud Trump. If he wants to make it like a grind, he should. I think that's smart.
Well, when he first got elected, I happened to have done some work for him a long time ago, minor legal cases in my short and less than storied legal career. But, I wrote an article, The Workaholic in Chief, because this guy only sleeps 4 or 5 hours a night. And the other 21 hours, 19 to 21 hours, he's thinking about how to screw them over, how to get done what he wants. And he surrounded himself with other people who don't sleep either. So they're so outnumbered, they don't even know it because, they got to, D.C. is not the place for the work ethic, for most of the people there, for sure.
Well, they're used to a certain lifestyle down there. They think they've arrived, and that's a dangerous mentality. Yeah. It's a dangerous mentality in any profession when you think that you are at the top. You should always try to strive to outdo yourself, no matter what profession you're in. And
absolutely.
They don't do that.
Yeah.
They don't do that. They think that they are it. They're the elite, and they think they're part of the funny part is they think they're part of the like 1%ers or the people who really make decisions in this country, but they're not. They're just posers.
Yeah, they're just they're the hired help. They're not not running things. Yeah, and they're there for a short time, and that's the thing. That's why you have this stasis there, because they think they're at the top of their game. And like you said, and like I myself, I've started this journalism gig much later in life. I'm working every single day. How can I do this better? How did I screw up here? What could I have said that would have made it different? And these guys are just like, they're just on autopilot. And that's why they're so vulnerable. And maybe they sense it. And Trump certainly knows it because the guy never stops working, And that's what you want.
Well, don't forget, too. Don't forget the average age of these guys covering the White House was 27.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about what I knew at 27, I was doing really well in journalism. I won some national awards by the time I was 27. Mm-hmm. But when I look at myself now compared to 27, I was a bumbling fool.
Yeah.
I mean, I can actually say
any
that.
profession.
I was a bumbling fool. I was an outlier because I worked hard and I had talent for uncovering things. I still have that.
But you didn't have experience. You had no experience.
I didn't have experience. Yeah, I just didn't have experience.
Yeah, and that's what's the difference. And that's part of the reason for the decline in the country is that work ethic and that dedication to self-improvement and self-education and the just the whole point of really being the best person that you can. As long as you did your best, you can never really have any regrets because you couldn't have done it any better. But they don't seem to get this. Anyway, your book, tell us the book. When's that coming out and why is it important?
Well, the book's coming out on October 29th, and we're looking forward to it because we put a lot of work into it. And I feel that it's important because it's going to tell people things they don't know because that's what I would want to do as a journalist. So if I put a book out, I read some of Woodward's book, and he's talking about nonsense stuff that you would talk about at a slumber party. And I guess that passes as a book. The guy made tons of money. Mm-hmm. What we're doing is exposing some of the reasons why the FBI came here and harassed me. But we've taken it a step further because we've developed that story, and it really is a disturbing story. It's a disturbing story, not just for me personally, because the story is so much bigger than just one person, and I don't make it a story about just me and I'm griping type thing. It's not like that. It's these guys after 9/11, well, before 9/11 and after 9/11, waged a campaign of fraud, treason, you name it.
I believe it.
Treason's pretty serious. So.
Oh yeah.
They're all involved. And we were fortunate enough to get some documents that we shouldn't have gotten, and emails that we shouldn't have gotten, and interviews that for some reason, I don't know why, I'll be honest with you, these people say, yeah, you can use my name. And I think it's a conscious thing that has caught up with people. They say, yeah, fine, use my name.
The guilt.
Usually when you're dealing with this stuff, it's like, don't use my name no matter what.
Yeah.
Promise me you won't use my name.
Hey, well, if you grow a conscience, that's great.
So these guys in the Bush and the Obama administration are going to have some problems. They're going to have to answer to a lot of things. The top dogs, the household names, and it's funny. If you want to locate a lot of those people, you just go on Twitter and see which ones are yelling the loudest about Trump.
Yeah, who's getting stuck, right? Who's getting stuck?
They're the ones
most.
That are a guy like Eric Holder.
Yeah.
A guy like John Brennan.
My God.
They're railing every day, and it's like, you guys are toast.
They must know it.
They don't know it, or they do know it, and they just don't care, or they don't think anything's going to happen because nothing ever has happened, or they think that I'm some rinky-dink journalist and no one's going to listen to me. Maybe that's true. I've always thought, though, Kerry, if your story is good and it's true and it's documented, it'll take off. The story will do well.
I think you're right.
It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter who. It could be somebody sitting at home. If they've dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's and they have proof and they lay it out, it'll take off. Hey, I've always thought that.
So tell us, the name of the book is Paine, How We Dismantled the FBI in Our Pajamas.
Correct. Yeah, that's the name of the book. It's available right now. If people want to order, they can get it on Amazon. It'll be out in a couple of weeks. And we're looking forward to it. I'm psyched. And
I am too.
I want people to read it. I want people to read it, and I want them to know what these people have been doing.
Absolutely.
It's disturbing. It really is disturbing.
It's murder has been committed, treason, and every other type of horrible, heinous act. The Pizzagate thing came out a while ago, and it was poo-pooed by all of the mainstream media, which is an indication that you need to look closer at it. I mean, there's nothing that these people won't stoop to. I mean, that's the reality. There's nothing they won't do.
And it's been going on forever, and a guy like Trump scares the you-know-what out of these people. And, and it's a good time. I don't, without Trump, I don't think a book like this, I don't think I could put it out.
No.
Kicking the door in again. They come and kick the door in again.
Yeah, maybe they do worse, Yeah. The way that they get the better of people and compromise you and, force you to do things that you wouldn't otherwise done, taking advantage of human frailty. It's really bad. Anyway, we got to go, but keep your eyes open for the book, Paine, How We Dismantled the FBI in Our Pajamas. Must reading. Michael, it's been great having you on here. We'll definitely talk to you after the book comes out. October 29th, you said, is the day?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, man. Take care.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.